Hi all, it's Kelly with the Appalachian Booksmith, and I'm excited because I'm going to be doing a show in Ogilvy Park in Wheeling, West Virginia. I did the show prior to COVID, and I did really good with my journals. People really like them, and there was a lot of requests for me to come back. Of course, I didn't with COVID and all. So this will be my first year since COVID going back, and I'm going to be making probably 20 journals. And I'm trying to film 4 or 5 of them as I go along. The first 2 journals I'm doing are made from this old quilt, and this is an Appalachian quilt, which I think is appropriate for the Appalachian Booksmith. I got this at an estate sale, and it is absolutely fabulous. It was in bad shape, but I love it. I love the look of it. I love everything about it. So I cut the 2 squares that I thought would work out the best, and I chose this blue one. And I chose this yellow one. And again, they're stained. That it is what it is. They are old quilts, and these quilts were used. I'm a quilt maker myself, and I'm telling you that I insist on people using the quilts. You know, if you get a quilt from someone, use it. It's not meant to be hung up. It's meant to be used. And it's the best night's sleep you'll ever have is on a quilt. So I decided to make the base of these quilts on these Amazon envelopes because this crunchy feel is amazing. And I'm thinking that the feel of that fabric on that crunchiness is going to be absolutely fantastic. I was not real purposeful with the first one. I didn't do specific measurements. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 inches by not quite, or maybe it's 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, a little over 10. This is going to be simply a 1 signature soft cover journal. The way this is flexible, even as the journal grows with 1 signature, it's going to be able to poof out a little bit. So I'm not going to bring the pages clear out. I'm going to give a little more room here than I normally would give when I'm putting my signature in, so that it has room to expand. Now, the second one, I was a little more purposeful. When you open up these bags, there is, if you carefully take them apart, there is this thin part here that doesn't have as much of that stuffing in it, that little foam stuffing you can see there. So what I decided to do was go ahead and put in a spine for this one. And the spine is, I think it was 9 inches by 2 inches. So it's going to be a pretty decent spine. And I cut it slightly smaller. So this is 9 1/4. And then it's 6 1/4 plus the 2 inches for the spine. So I cut this 14 1/4 by 9 1/4. And that's going to be the base for the second journal. I haven't decided colors. I might throw some doilies in there. I've got some other vintage things that I have gotten at estate sales here in West Virginia. And things I've gotten at thrift shops here in West Virginia. And I might throw some of that in. So that's going to be my first 2 journals. And as I go through the steps, I will keep videoing it. And I'm probably just going to make this one video. I'm just going to tape it over the next 2 days. And then I will put them all together as one video. So I'll see you along the way. Okay, so now since I have everything cut out, I am going to glue this spine onto the center. And all I did was line up these 2 blue lines. And I put this roughly in the center, made sure it was close on both, centered it, and then I just folded it. And by making that fold, it gives me the spot where I'm going to put that spine. So that was the first thing I did. And this is so funny. I have about 6 of these little bottles of Fabri-Tac that my students used, and I was going to throw them out, and I thought, no, let me take them home, and I might be able to get a little extra glue out of them. I have a new bottle, but I don't want to open this. Once you open them, it's just a matter of time they get pretty gross. And so I thought, let me get what I can out of these guys rather than throw them out. And I think it's going to be better if I go ahead and just glue the board. And of course and I'm not sure, even though I don't think the spine is going to need any reinforcement on top of what it already has. Just to make it look smoother, I might put a piece of old used Tyvek over top of this to make a smoother transition from the side of the book to the spine. I want to make sure I get the edges pretty good because there's not going to be any sewing or anything over this spine that I'm putting in. And then it's just a matter of getting it centered. And the one thing I love about Fabri-Tac is I can move it for a minute. I also love Fabri-Tac because, well, it just does a great job. So that, and that side folding over, and these two are meeting nicely. So that's absolutely fantastic. That's exactly what I wanted to happen. Now I'm not trying to overthink this, so I am simply going to glue the quilt piece on this and then cut around it is what I'm going to do. And I thought with this one, I'm going to leave a rough edge with the fabric. I'm going to put a fabric on the outside and one on the inside, and then just sew around it. And you might be able to see some of this, but I don't really mind. I don't think it's going to be much. I'm going to sew pretty tight along this and have the fabric out a ways. So the next step is going to be gluing this guy on here, which I guess I just decided impromptu that it's going to be the yellow one. And I'm thinking that I want to center this the best I can. Really, at the end of the day, I don't think it's going to matter how centered it is, since it is just an old ragged quilt. So if I fold this back, it's right on the edge. If I fold this back, it's not. So I'm going to pull this down just a little bit more. And now I've got, like probably a 1/4 inch from the edge. And about the same down here. Not quite. Let's one drop up. Yeah. So I can feel the bags right about there, the packaging. And the packaging is right about there. Right about there. I think that's pretty good. So I'll just be cutting those points off. And on this side, I've got a little point and a little point. So I think this is centered pretty good. I think my best bet, so I don't get it, away from this, I don't get it kind of cockeyed, is my best bet's going to be to peel this back and start gluing that way. And just maybe glue this half and then glue the second half afterwards. And I will probably fast forward through this part, because who wants to sit and watch me glue for several minutes? Got everything glued on, and it glued really easy, and eyeballing it, I didn't do half bad there. All I did off camera was go around with my pinking shears, and I just cut around it with the pinking shears. So now what I need to do is decide what's going to be my inside fabric and whether I'm going to embellish this outside. If I'm going to embellish this outside, I'm going to go ahead and sew those things on now before I put my inside fabric in. But I'm going to go ahead and choose that inside fabric, and I'm going to choose my attachment for this one, or how I'm going to close it. And I think I'm going to close it with this sheer ribbon. So what I do to decide on the inside fabric, I knew I wanted some little flowers. And I'm pretty fortunate because I have a lot of fabric because of my quilting background. So the way I choose an inside cover is I simply just lay them in there. close the book and imagine opening it. And that just wasn't enough for me. I actually am struggling with this because I haven't found one I 100% fell in love with. I think I was looking for a even smaller print with a lot more color to it that I shockingly didn't have. So when I opened that, it was better, but not necessarily what I was looking for. And hey, you never know, I might come back and use it anyway. This was, oh, this is so pretty, but I don't know, the feel seemed wrong to me, but it's very pretty with it. And then I found this feed sack reproduction, and this is what I decided I'm going to go with, is that simple blue in there. I like it. I thought about doing a ticking fabric because I have ticking fabric in a couple colors, but I think it's going to be this. So I think I'm going to use this one as the inside. The only issue I have is that I want to use the Fabri-Tac because it's flexible, and using this thin cotton is going to allow that glue to seep through, and I really don't want that. So there's a possibility that I'm going to cut this to about the size I want, and then I'm going to attach it to another piece of fabric. I haven't 100% decided, but that's the game plan. Now, as far as the what I want as a tie to close it up, I've decided just to use something simple. So I'm going to line this up, and you can see I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I'm going to try to center it a little bit. So you can see I'm off a 1/4 inch here and off a 1/4 inch-ish here. So now it's like there's 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4. So right there is where I will put my ribbon. And I usually cut it bigger than I want it to be. And I think in this case, this ribbon looks better if it's over. It's like a huge tie. It's almost too big. So I'm going to cut these bigger than I probably need, but that's okay. This is very flimsy. By the way, this is from Hobby Lobby, and where they have, usually right beside their Tim Holtz stuff, they have their own version of Tim Holtz type of stuff, and then they have these flowers and leaves and things like that for embellishments, and they also have these little containers, and they come in a pack of 2. So this is their cream and white. I think I've got like one that's in pinks, but they're $2.99, but I don't pay that for them. I always wait. You got to follow those Hobby Lobby and whatever place you shop. You got to look for their sales and know what it is that's on sale at different times with them. So I'm simply, and of course I should have marked it and I didn't because, well, that's typical me. So if I go 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, marks the spot, and over here. So 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, marks the spot. Now, is it going to be absolutely perfect? Who knows? Yep, they actually are lining up really well. So that just gives me a better idea of where to put this. And I am going to use the Fabri-Tac. And I figured out why I was probably going to get rid of the Fabri-Tac. When you have middle schoolers using something like this, they're not good about putting lids on things. And boy, when I was putting that cover on, it was hard to get the glue out. I thought, boy, I don't need to do much of a workout today because I'm getting it gluing this stuff or getting the glue out of the bottle. So that's that simple. Let it dry. Nice little end hanging out there. Try to make sure this side, I'll just glue it real quick. This is going to get sewn over, so it's not that big of a deal. And ta-da. And if one ends up a little shorter or longer, it's okay. And number one, I made extra so I can turn it. So I'm going to let this dry and try to come up with a definite on my inside cover, how I'm going to do it. And when I figure that out, I'll be back. Okay, I'm back with a considerably messier desk, that's for sure. I decided to go ahead and put pockets in here. So I don't want all the bulk in the center. So instead of taking it straight across, I cut them. And what I started with was one of these doilies. And I did buy this at an antique shop, but this is not an antique. This is something that you could find like at any crafts store. Well, I'm thinking more like a gift shop, or if you go to the Amish country or something like that, you could find this type of thing. And I imagine these are just what people set on their dressers for knickknacks and whatnot. So I cut it in half, and then I simply folded it down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the sewing machine, and I'm going to sew that down because I didn't want the pocket to be more than half the book. And that does add a little interest. And then if I decide, I can put some cute embellishments on this part. Now, for the fabric in the center, I went ahead and cut the blue fabric, the reproduction flower speed sack fabric, and I cut a very, very thin piece of a piece off of very thin, what is it? I got glue on me. Very thin cotton batting. You can see it's incredibly thin. This is my favorite batting. This is what I use in quilts, which I think some people would find this too thin, but it's what I like to quilt with. And they've made it easier to quilt. This normally cotton would be really difficult to quilt through, but they've made easy needle cotton and these beautiful thins. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my sewing machine, and I'm going to take this, and I'm going to go every couple of inches, and I'm going to sew the length of this so that it becomes quilted. After I do that, I'm then going to sew the pockets, and I'm going to let them hang out a little bit so that this lace will show on the other side. And you know what? I may not sew I think I'm just going to glue the pockets down because I'm going to sew around every bit of this in a little bit. So I think I'm just going to get this sewn, glue these down. In the meanwhile, there's a good possibility too that I will put some kind of embellishment on these. I'm not sure. I'm going to have some things stuffed in the pockets, which is going to create some interest. I'll just have to wait and see when it's all together what I think, whether or not I'm going to do that. And the nice thing about it is, if I've already got it all sewn together and it's embellishments I want to sew, I can do like an applique stitch on this. I've also decided on the front of this journal, I probably am going to put something here, and some kind of embellishment or some kind of front to it, and probably something down here. And I'm going to wait and do it after I decide and I get an idea about my signatures and the feel I want for this journal. And then again, if it's something I need to sew, I can simply applique stitch around and it won't go all the way through, and it'll be fine. So I'm just get this part done and then move on. And when I get all this sewn together, I'll come on and show you. This is really a simple detail, but I thought, let me just go on and show you what I decided to do. Originally, I was just going to run it through the machine and eyeball it. I am doing my stitching in brown on this entire journal, so I know it's going to cover it. So sometimes when I quilt on something darker and I'm using darker fabric, I'll mark with pencil. So what I did is I got into my scrap chipboard, and I found a piece that I'm going to use, and I don't know that line. I can see it really well. I don't know how well it's going to show up, but I'm going to use that just to make the lines across. I'm going to do that all the way down before I go over to the sewing machine. So I just wanted to show that. I also pinned it because I gave myself 1/8 of an inch all the way around, because when you sew, things are going to, you know, as you're sewing, you're pushing things in. So you're going to have less fabric to put over the inside of that. So as I sew it, it's going to possibly get a little smaller, and I want to make sure that it fits inside the journal. So I went 1/8 of an inch all the way around extra. Maybe I went 1/8 each way. I'm not sure, but just a little bit of, I mean, and I'm sure some people didn't need to hear that, but I thought, let me let you know what I'm doing. So I'll be back. Okay, that was pretty quick. I am back. And what I did, as you can see on the back, is I simply sewed lines, almost like a faux quilting. It is quilting, but it's not. I guess I'm a quilting snob. I always want quilting to be by hand. So I machine quilted this in place. And the whole purpose of this was to make sure my glue didn't seep through. And I'm hoping I didn't make a huge mistake and this create too much bulk. I don't think it will, but you know, there's always that possibility. Then I went ahead and sewed these down with a zigzag stitch, and I sewed this side on, but I'm going to be sewing completely around this when I attach it. So I didn't sew these sides, but so they wouldn't fall out of place or get, you know, messed up some ways. I went ahead and put little drops of Fabri-Tac around that. And I tried to make them really small so they wouldn't come through, but I can see them in a few spots. But I think that's going to be a really nice inside cover. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to do what I did earlier. I'm going to take this, line it up really good. I'm going to peel it up, and I'm going to glue it and put it back down. And then I'm going to let it dry, and I'll sew around the entire thing. I'm even going to attempt to go through this book board, because the girl from, I think it's, I always want to say 2 silver lemons or 2 silver oranges or tangerines. Jessica is her name. She does sew through that. Now I have a brand new Singer, but I have some old cast iron heavy duties. So I don't know if I want to try this on my brand new Singer or if I want to use one of my cast irons. Because I mean, there is that little piece of chipboard in there, but a book board. We'll see. When I get back, hopefully this is all glued, sewn around, and we'll officially have a cover. See you in a few. Okay, the cover is done. Other than some kind of embellishment I'm going to put on the front of it, I'm going to have to say that I'm 100% in love with this journal. I'm supposed to be selling it, and I'm like, I don't really want to. I'm in love with it, but it's going to get sold. It is outstanding. The pockets are nice and deep. It's just beautiful. It's got, you know, it's an old quilt. It's got the stains. And listen to that. It's like heaven in a journal. I am beyond excited about this journal. And I'm going to look at the other one. I think I'm going to put the other journal just, it's going to be very similar to this. So I think I'm just going to put it together and then come back when I do something with all the signatures. So see you later. Okay, so I've finished both covers and I'm absolutely in love with this cover. It is very sweet. I'm not sure about this ribbon. I did sew it in, so I'm kind of committed to it, but you open it up and you have your 2 pockets, and I have a pretty big spine in here. I think it's 2 inches. So I'm going to be able to put either 3 large or 5 small. I think I might do 5 small signatures. So I finished that cover. Then I finished this cover, and I went a little crazy. So this is the journal I created with that cover. And size-wise, well, it's sitting here on the mat. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11-ish by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's very off-kilter. It has a single signature, and it's, I mean, you can tell it's definitely a junk journal. I mean, it wouldn't take much to kind of move things around to where that was more centralized, but I had a ton of fun with this. I have these little safety pins that have they have 3 little eyelets on them or hooks on them, and I was able to turn that into an elongated tassel. And then I found white and blue of these bulb clips, and I found this. Isn't this so sweet? I don't know how well it'll show up. It seems blurry today. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And then I added this charm with these little blue flowers. And then I had this old antique silver spoon, and I cut it off and bent it. It's got little flowers. Like I said, I'm having a time with lighting today. I don't know. So that is the outside, and this is 1 square from a quilt, an old quilt I bought. And I used the seam binding for the tie, and then you open it up, and I end up doing the inside with this floral. I'm in love with this. It reminds me of going to like your great aunts or your grandmas back when you were little, and the sheets are always colorful like this. So I kept thinking, well, here's the quilt and here's the sheet. Now I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Maybe if I can, well, that was not zooming in. I decided not to have a theme with this one. I want to truly just make it a junk journal. So I have this pocket in the front, and these are literally just offcuts of some scrapbook paper. And then I had this simple one, and I glued some old vintage lined paper on it, made a little tag for it, and stuck that in there. And I did sew on some lace. This is some old music paper, and it's probably pretty old. I've got some pretty old paper. This is just an envelope that I tea-dyed, and I put a tea-dyed tag and a plain tag because I want this to be somebody else's journal, not mine. I want someone else to decorate it. There's a fold out here, and this paper, it was at the signature came out terrible for this set of papers, so I went ahead and just sewed some cotton on there. And then I have an envelope with some old music paper. And then I went ahead and put some real vintage ephemera in here. So this is from Tiffin, Ohio, Tiffin's Savings Bank. And this is from 59. I found this postcard, so I put that in there. If I can get it back in there. I went ahead and did a few of these little scrunchies and bulb pins with, I always put a key somewhere, it seems like, in all of my journals. I don't even think it's intentional. It just kind of seems like something I always do. And I thought this page was I just needed something to bring them all together. So I cut out this flower with the Sizzix. And this is so sweet. This is Stitches of Love. I think I made this and I did some kind of tutorial or just a show and tell as I made these using some new pins I ordered. And again, pretty plain, pretty simple. I'm leaving this up to whoever purchases it. This is a huge glassine bag. The other is on the other half. And I made a tag that keeps catching. I glued everything down, but that little piece there, I don't know how I missed it in there. And it has writing paper on the back. This is the end of a bag with some paper. And again, I felt like something needed to be here without over decorating it. I wanted to leave enough plain. So the center has some tracing paper that's got some tea splatter on it. And there's some good paper. Like this is handmade. You can see the decal edges, paper and ledger paper. And again, there's the bag. There's the other side of that glassine bag. And again, I want this to be about somebody else decorating their journal. So I did some of this embossing. And there's some recipe cards I put in this little spot here. And I have some stitching on that. Another one of my little, oh gosh, I don't know. I can't think of those little fabric, I don't know, little ruffly things. And I thought this looks so pretty. I found this green paper and I thought it looked so pretty with that, with a print on it. So I cut that out. More of my tea-dyed papers. Another envelope with some just plain guest checks in them. Another fold out. This is from that Tim Holtz Sizzix embossing folder. I went ahead and made that into a pocket. And again, some authentic ephemera. And the other side of that envelope. And these are from Mallow Cups. I remember that when I was a kid. The Mallow Cups had the little things in them. Music paper. And then this is the last part of the signature. And inside of here, I just simply made one of those little ticket holders and put some tickets in it. And I little piece of fabric, I stamped tickets, but I tried not to overdo it. I just wanted it to be absolutely simple. This is truly a junk journal, and it is, the measurements are odd, everything's odd about it, but I had so much fun doing it. I had so much fun making these two covers, and I watched a video from a woman who made these covers, and again, I love that. Listen to that. Isn't that fantastic? I will, within 24 hours of this video being out, I will attempt to, or I'll definitely get the woman linked on this that I got this idea from. So hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully it inspired you to make something, or to, you know, at least keep those Amazon bags, because that's phenomenal. I love the feel and sound of that. So, okay, thanks for watching.